I do want to ask a few questions about the Lyme Timber deal in northwestern Pennsylvania. So my first question would be, has the $50 million loan from Penvest been dispersed to Lyme Timber at this point?
Yeah, we're not directly involved with that. I think so. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
It has. Okay.
Okay. So as a condition of receiving the $50 million state-backed loan at 1% interest with generous repayment terms to purchase 60,000 acres of timberland, Lyme Timber agreed to provide public access to about 15% of the property, or about 9,000 acres.
Right.
When the deal was first announced, no one defined what public access would actually mean, but a 48-page deed restriction that was filed last June with the Cameron County Recorder of Deeds sheds light on, frankly, how little public access will truly be seen by the public as a result of the state-backed $50 million loan. Madam Secretary, have you reviewed the terms of that deed restriction?
Yes, we have. And just in a broader sense, the reason we were promoting forest conservation easements is we started a process a couple years ago, a Green Ribbon Task Force about the forest product industry. And that task force rolled out a bunch of recommendations to support ongoing forest product industry in Pennsylvania. A lot of our legislative partners have advanced certain bills. One was advanced by Representative Rapp and Representative Kauser and others.
Madam Secretary, I don't mean to interrupt. I only have 5 minutes, and
Okay,
I'm not disputing the value of Pennsylvania's forests or the importance of preserving them. My question is specifically related to the fact that this was funded out of a fund that is supposed to be going to water and sewer, municipal water and sewer projects, and a key component of the loan was that 15% of the property was going to receive public access.
Yes.
Now, in this document, in the deed restriction, DCNR is ordered to negotiate a public access infrastructure plan with Lyme Timber. It repeatedly states that public access must be limited to low density dispersed use. That's the term used repeatedly. It further states that Lyme must agree to any changes or revisions to the plan. Has this public access infrastructure plan been formulated at this point?
We are working. I'll turn to John in a second here, but number one, forest land does clean water. Number two, what you described as recreation is the same recreation.
With all due respect, ma'am, I only have 5 minutes. Has this public access infrastructure plan been formulated at this point between DCNR and Lyme Timber?
If you're asking if the easement has...
No, I'm asking if the public access infrastructure plan, which details how the public will be able to access the 9,000 acres, that's specifically outlined in this deed restriction that was filed last June with the Cameron County Recorder of Deeds, has that been formulated at this point 8 months later?
Yes.
Is that available and for review to the public?
Yes.
Can I get a copy of that?
Yes.
Fantastic. In the document, it outlines in this deed restriction, no new paving of any sort is permitted in the 9,000 acres, not a road, not even a parking space. Will this provide a challenge in providing public access to individuals with physical disabilities in that not even a paved handicap parking space is contemplated?
So again, the easement really follows the management guidelines that we have on the 2.2 million acres of state forest lands. So to the general public, when they walk onto that property, it will feel and look just like a state forest.
I understand that. So I don't know. And it could be that it's the policy that we do not pave a parking lot in a state forest or provide handicapped access. Is that the case?
We provide handicapped access, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be paved. I'll point out that a lot of our trail designs, a lot of our parking lot designs are impervious, fine gravel, graded, leveled, so that across our state forest land, our goal is exactly the description you made across the 2.2 million acres. The experience on a state forest is a more natural forested experience.
And I agree and I understand with that. I do question the ability of not even to pave a handicap parking spot. Page 30 outlines in this document that DCNR and Lyme will participate in an annual meeting to update the public access plan. Will this public access meeting be open to the public?
So we open a vast majority of our meetings to the public. The particular meeting you're talking about, it's probably more of an internal meeting to find out what the needs are of the landowner, which is Lyme Timber, and then what the needs are of the Commonwealth.
So the public access meeting would not be open to the public then?
We can take public comment through the state forest that it's in. And I mean, we interact with the public all the time. We have annual public meetings in that state forest to get input. And
Let me ask this final question. And I do just want to be clear. I certainly support DCNR and Pennsylvania's efforts to preserve land, timberland, farmland. My own grandfather put his farm into, it was actually New Jersey's farmland preservation program. But what concerns me here is that as part of a $50 million state-backed loan at 1% interest, which was not publicly advertised or competitively bid, as part of that loan, Lyme Timber promised public access for 9,000 of these 60,000 acres. And now we learn that the public access is pretty limited and that Lyme Timber has veto power over any changes to this public access plan at these annual meetings that are apparently not going to be open to the public. So this deed restriction agreement repeatedly states that the terms of the deed restriction run with the property and will exist for perpetuity. So my question is, if Lyme eventually sells or transfers the property to DCNR, and DCNR takes title to the property, would the public access plan, the annual meeting between Lyme and DCNR, and Lyme's right to veto changes to the terms of the public access continue on forever?
So to your question, we disagree on the point on access. We feel that we are getting the access is expected for state forest lands, and that, like John had said, the user is going to feel like they're in public lands. The purpose of a working forest easement is a different model than us taking it into
My question is,
public
if
land.
DCNR eventually takes over the property and owns the property, would Lyme still have veto power over the terms of public access to what would then be public property?
I think part of the beauty of the forest land easement program that we're entered into is that there would be no reason for DCNR to purchase that land. So right now, when DCNR purchases land, particularly for state forest lands, we purchase it for water quality purposes, we purchase it for timber production, and we purchase it for recreational opportunities. This easement does exactly that at a reduced cost to the taxpayers. Plus, it keeps the land on the public tax roll. So I don't see any reason why DCNR would want to buy those properties.
And it speaks to that regional difference that Representative James. When I meet with county commissioners in the North Central, they don't want more land going into state forest ownership. This is a working forest easement, so it really removes, like John said, any reason for us to own it. This is the model that we're trying to establish. And I know there's been concern about the Lyme easement. We were looking at it just from the forest easement side of it. And we feel a missing tool in the toolkit. I mean, we don't have like an ag land easement program for forests. So I think, we're working with industry, trying to answer questions, increase people's ease with this idea. We'd be happy to come in and spread out maps and talk to you in detail about our thinking on this. But the point is, it's not an acquisition into state forest land. It's a working forest easement where the public is getting a lot. I mean, they're getting great access to a beautiful piece of property that's not guaranteed to them.